Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach Kevin. I am your host, Kevin Thornton, the wellness architect, life coach, and author. And today, like no other days, I have an amazing guest. For me, I've been saying that 2024 is the year of the black man. And today is no other. This man, I've been following him since I've been in Atlanta. Um, he's a radio personality. He does stuff. He does the weather. He's an actor. He does a lot of range of things, but more important, he's very intelligent. But more important, those who know me know that if I follow anybody and I respect anybody, it's because I feel that their energy and their spirit is in alignment with who I am as a person. And this person, is truly his spirit is in alignment with me. I feel he's a light and he spreads light and joy to everybody he goes to, whether it's on the radio, whether he's on the TV screen, whether he's just out in person. So I want you to meet him. We can figure out his journey to how he became Jarard J, and more importantly, what can he tell our black men and our black women in how to stay positive and prayerful going through the journey. So without further ado, I want Jarard J. How you
Wow,
doing, brother?
I'm doing well. First of all, thank you for that introduction, man. Like, you have no idea what kind of a light you just set off for me. I appreciate, that level of respect and just that's awesome, man. So thank you. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. Well, first of all, I believe we wait too long to give people their flowers or tell people how how and what they have done for them. So you don't know a lot of us. You don't know a lot of people that you talk to on the radio,
Hmm.
but your personality and your genuine light it exudes through the radio waves. So
Wow.
it touches us in a way that you don't even really understand. And so it's my pleasure to give you that kind of flower, let you know what you do for us.
Wow. Thank you, bro.
So no problem, sir. So tell everybody who you are and how you get to become who you are right now.
Well, my name is Gerard Johnson, thus Jarard J. I was born in Denver, Colorado. Was grew up in Denver area. Left Denver when I went to go to college at Arizona State University, where I played football there, and remained in Arizona until 2013 when I moved to Atlanta. And then now I'm in Atlanta. Been here for the past 10 years. And my journey as a personality is actually an interesting one because I became a radio personality because God told me to. It was never like an intention of mine, although
Mhm.
I always kind of had like I have pictures of myself from like kindergarten when I was like hosting talent shows and emceeing events, and I was in a couple of plays as a kid. But then again, every little kid does stuff like that, right? So
Right.
the radio actually happened. Again, it was God's intention. So what was going on was when I was at Arizona State University, that was in the days when they had like the spring break stuff going on, like MTV Spring Break and Spring Bling and all that. And I was out there hanging out with my homies. Like I played football at ASU. So in the spring when we had a rest, we would go for the spring break trip, and that's what we did. Did that a couple of years and ended up just meeting people that ended up being part of my journey later on. And putting me in front of certain people. And so what happened was they had me emceeing the parties at the spring break stuff. I'm on the mic, I'm rocking the party, we getting everybody having fun and all that. And then when I got back to Arizona, the last year that I did spring break, I met a DJ in the club by the name of DJ Flavor, who
Oh,
actually is very largely responsible for me getting any type of exposure initially, right? I was in a club, I was having a drink, I was tired. I had just got back from Cancun. I had been in Cancun for 10 weeks because I was out there for the spring break and I was at one of the staff members and all that hosting the parties. And so he basically looked at me. He was like, "Hey man, aren't you the dude that was doing the spring break stuff?" We just started talking, and I walked up to him and we just started talking. And he was like, "Man, I need an MC that'll come and rock for me while I'm DJing these clubs in Arizona." I was like, "Okay, cool." So he brought me on. I was his club MC for a while, and he was affiliated with a company named Urban AZ that was ran by a guy named Derek Ware. He's a phenomenal person. Him and his wife Vivian. And they were the ones that were promoting all of the events back then, right? And also at the time, I was real cool with the dude named Big Willie. Rest in peace, Big Willie. He was the night talent at the radio station at that time, right? And
Mhm.
so he had befriended me, and we were hanging out. So he took me everywhere with him, and I kind of learned some of the game from him. But basically, I was on the club on the microphone, just rocking the parties. And at that time, in Phoenix, I mean, you talk about going to parties, man. There was 2,000 people, 2,500 people in these clubs. It was a really, really big party scene. And I'm the
Mhm.
MC, and we doing great things, having fun or whatever. And things just started to elevate because I started to be at these events, and different people would be at these events, and they'd be like, "Hey, who's the dude on the mic? Like he rocking, that type of thing." And one particular Saturday, there was a concert, and this is when Ludacris had "What's Your Fantasy" out, and he was
Mhm.
on tour with Shaggy and Pink. They were on tour. And they had the after party in the club where I was the MC, right? So the program director happened to be in the club because it was their after party. And they kind of had heard of me by that time because of my boy Big Willie, because he was on the radio at the time. So he introduced me to some people and things like that. And the program director named Bruce St. James, he walked up to me, and this is exactly what he said. I'm on the microphone. He walks up to me and he goes, "Hey, can you do that on the radio?" And I was like, "Do what?" He goes, "That. Can you do this on the radio?" And I was like, "I mean, possibly. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean?" So that was on a Saturday. He said, "Hey, come see me on Monday." So that Monday, I went to go meet with him. He had his assistant program director by the name of Charlie Weddle, and he had his music director by the name of DJ Mikey Mike. And they were all in the office, and I met them, talked to them. And basically they said, "Hey, we think that you have it. Whatever it means, we think you have it,
Mhm.
and that you'd be phenomenal on the radio." And I was like, "No way, there's no way." But they asked me if I wanted to try it, and I tried it. And the rest is history. I fell in love with it. It fell in love with me, and I began to like witness this meteoric rise that I went through. They
Mhm.
they they basically threw me on the radio. I was in there with a guy named Big Ben and a woman named Karina who kind of taught me the technical stuff like the board and all that and the sound boards and teaching me kind of radio mechanics and things like that. And so what happened at that point is I started doing like overnight stuff, like from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, so I could kind of learn the dynamics of what was going on. And then, of course, Bruce St. James and his team, they kept their hands on me and kept showing me the way and things like that, man. And the next thing I knew, I get a phone call from Bruce, and he was like, "Hey, how do you feel about it? Like, what do you think?" I was like, "Man, this is really cool. It's really fun." He was like, "Good, because now we want you to be our overnight talent full time." And I was like, "What?" So I end up doing the overnight show full time, and it was called the Overnight Flight. So I had it set up where it felt like you were on a flight, like you were on a plane. So I had like
Mhm.
airplane sounds and like flight attendant whistles and bells and stuff like that would go in between songs. And so you were like on an overnight flight with J times 3, which was my radio name when I was in Phoenix, right? And so
Mhm.
I did that, and then I get another phone call. And that phone call was probably about 8 months later. So now I've been in radio for a total of 8 months, and I get a phone call from Bruce saying, "Hey, we want you to go prime time. We want you to be our evening personality." And I couldn't believe it. At the time, it was a little strange because the guy Big Willie I told you about, he was the evening jock at that time, but they were letting him go. Remember, he was a friend of mine, and
Mhm.
so, but they were letting him go for some reasons or whatever. So I actually had a conversation with him, and he pretty much kind of blessed me with it. He was like, "Hey, man, go do your thing, whatever." So I do the evening show. Now I did the evening show for 4 years and performed extremely well. The audience really, really embraced me to a different capacity. It was really awesome. And we had a lot of great memories, a lot of great things when I was doing evenings. And then 4 years after they gave me the evening show, I get another phone call. And now they wanted me to go to afternoon drive, which is the prime time slot. Like you have mornings and afternoons are your two prime slots in radio. So now I've been in radio 4 total years. I'm still learning or whatever, but now I'm basically one of the faces of the radio station at this point. And I did that for 7 years at that same radio station. So afternoon drive, man, was a journey in itself. I had one of the greatest DJs. That was my DJ. His name was DJ M2. Literally, I never heard anybody better than him. He's amazing. Him, DJ Flavor, those guys, amazing DJs. And so M2 was my DJ in the afternoons. When I was doing the evening show, I had a DJ by the name of DJ Robbie Rob, who was another just unbelievable artist on the turntables. And those were like my DJs while I was the personality. And so I got to work with some really, really amazing people that elevated me to a level that I didn't believe I could perform myself, which I thought was really cool because I got to tap into their energies and extract things from them, which catapulted me. You know, catapulted
Mhm.
my confidence and just me as an entertainer. It just catapulted the whole situation. So then, you know, in 2012 is when my career at Power 98.3, which was that station in Phoenix, came to an end. Kind of a mutual situation. The station was going one way, and I didn't feel like there was much else I could really accomplish in that market. Phoenix had
Right.
embraced me to a different type of level, man. Like Phoenix had watched me grow. It had curated me as a talent, as a man, as a personality, and all those things. And they just embraced me to a level in which they allowed me to have a successful run there for 12 plus years, which in radio is kind of unheard of. You know what I mean? Like personalities don't stick around like that unless it's in an urban format like
Right.
Atlanta. But in Phoenix, that doesn't happen. So that was a huge compliment and a huge testament to the embrace that I got from that market. So then that's when I came to Atlanta. And when I came to Atlanta, the funny thing was I didn't actually come here on the strength of radio because I didn't know where I was going to land. What happened was, I have a history in the auto industry. My father was a general
Mhm.
manager of a Toyota store when I was a kid, so I've always had like the auto industry kind of in my blood as well. So when everything ended for me at Power 98.3, real close friend of mine, brother of mine named Kevin Grant, was running a Chevrolet store in Arizona. And my agent and I were sitting down trying to figure out where I was going to land. But at this point, I didn't just want to go to any city. I was like, I don't just want to be moving around place to place to place because that's how radio personalities do. And I didn't really want to do that. So I said, realistically, man, I really want to be in Atlanta. You know, my mother was here. I had moved my mom here already. So she was here. And I just wanted to come to Atlanta because I knew about the market that it was and all of that. So what I did up until that is I went and I was working at the car dealership until I could figure out what was going on. And
Mhm.
I ended up getting promoted a couple of times while I was there. And so it was kind of cool. So I went to internet sales director, and then went to the finance department because my boy
Mhm.
Kevin was like, you know what, you should be doing finance. Just the way you talk to people, the way your personality is, the way that you are such an astute, you know, business individual, you'd be well respected if you did finance. So I took his word for it, did the trainings and all that kind of stuff, and ended up doing finance at that dealership until I came to Atlanta. But when I came to Atlanta, it was because the auto industry was pulling me to Atlanta, but I wanted to come to Atlanta anyway on the strength of radio. So
Right.
everything just kind of blended its way into this funnel and brought me to Atlanta. So I get to Atlanta, I'm working at a car dealership as a finance manager. Then I get pulled into V103, and that was in April 2014. When I get pulled to B103, that's the time when you're talking about where I go there and they have me filling in for everybody, morning show, midday show, afternoon show. And it was kind of, that was my first time being a fill-in talent. So I had to kind of learn how to navigate through that.
Mhm.
And it was challenging because every show on a radio station is different. So when you
Right.
go in and you're doing somebody else's show, sometimes it can be a little challenging because you have to know who the audience is and all those type of things in that particular day part. But that's what I was doing. So then I did that for a few years actually, but there was never anywhere for V to be able to put me right. And
Mhm.
for a long time, man, to be transparent, I always looked at that like it was indicative of my talent level. I always felt like, well, I'm not good enough to be taken seriously in this type of a market, and that's why they don't want to put me anywhere. And I still to this day struggle with that, but thankful for people like Big Tigger and Greg Street and Ryan Cameron and Frank Ski and Wanda Smith, who always kept telling me, nah, Jarard, it's not you, bro. Like you're really good.
Can
Like it's not you. It's
can I ask
just
you a
timing.
question?
Yeah,
Gotcha. I'm about to pull on my life coach hat for a second.
yeah.
So, what is it at times why you still feel at times you may not be good enough? Because the world sees you as its greatness, but
Wow.
what is it? What is it within yourself that sometimes you feel like you're not good enough still?
I think that I'm a realist to a degree where I feel like, okay, if I was that dope, then they'd have made a place for me, or I would have been, you know, the afternoon guy or the morning guy or whatever. Like I've always felt like, well, if I'm that nice at this, then why would they, you know, have me as on the bench, right? And that's the way
Mhm.
I've always looked at really everything in life, man. I've always looked at it that way. Like I've always felt like if you're really good, if you're as good as maybe some people claim or whatever, then you're gonna get positioned to be able to exude that greatness. You understand what I'm saying? And that
Right.
never happened for me at V on a full-time level. So I looked at it like, and still look at it like, well, I must not be that good. I might be good. You know, I might sound decent or whatever the case is, and have whatever innate natural abilities that people are looking at. But am I top tier? And I've never looked at myself that way, because I feel like if I was, then I'd be in different positions. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
that's just the way I've always looked at it. But again, you know, I really credit a lot of people that kept telling me that wasn't the case. Like, bro, like it's not you. It's just that timing is off or whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? So I do struggle with that, and I still struggle with that to this day. So
Yeah, because I just feel like you said, you came to one of the hottest markets.
exactly. Yeah.
You came to one of the hottest markets where pretty much everybody who, when you came down here, now a lot of the people that you came down here with have syndicated talk radio shows.
Yep.
So that just shows you the the amount of talent you was up against at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
So reality is not that you wasn't that good. You was good, but they was just you was with some of the greats. You
Yeah.
know, Fransky, Ryan are some of the greats. They in the Hall of Fame. You
Yeah.
know, so at the end of the day, that's where you're gonna be going. But at the end of the day, you just had to take your time and be the all-star six man.
Yeah. Six man. That's what they called me. Yep.
Be the all-star six man and learn from all those guys and women.
hmm
And now do it.
hmm
And that's how I feel like that's what you have to look at it as. You was the all-star on the six-man team at that time because you was on a team full of greats.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's fair. I struggle with looking at it that way sometimes, man, because again, I just look at things from a matter of fact perspective a lot. And
Mhm.
I know that sometimes that's not always the best way to look at things, because there's always things that are intermingling, and there's always things that have to work out a certain way. And I get it.
Right,
And sometimes it's not about, you know, the actual subject himself. Sometimes it's about the circumstances. And again, it's a struggle for me. And
right.
I've talked to people about it. I've talked to therapists about it. I've all of that stuff, you know. But somebody told me yesterday, man, the funny thing was that I have something called imposter syndrome, which I didn't really know what that meant. But
Mhm.
they basically said to me that I'm viewed this type of way by everybody else, but I view myself in a different
Completely
way.
different.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely. I agree.
yeah,
I
that's I
agree
mean,
because
yeah.
we
So
see you as the listeners and the people who follow you in the way that I expressed to you since we doing starting the show.
yeah,
This greatness that you are, and you're doing it in your way and your manner through positivity, through light and love, stuff like that. And that's the greatness that is. That's why people follow you so much.
I
And
appreciate it.
so, I just think sometimes, you just gotta get out your own way and just know that you are the greatness.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. You know, and I'll tell you this. When I hear something like that from a person like yourself that's really been monitoring my progression and that really appreciates whatever it is that I'm exuding, that gives me a different level of fuel. You know what I'm saying? And it does help me to be able to put things in different perspective. You know,
Mhm.
it's just that the way people have to understand about me is like the way that I came up, I was raised to be very humble. Be confident in yourself and be articulate and be, you know, be forthright and all those things, but be humble and always look at it like it's expectation instead of celebration sometimes. So like
Mhm.
I expect to do certain things that other people might say, well, you should celebrate that. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so I look at it differently. And I guess sometimes that can skew my way of looking at things, I guess. But I've
Yeah.
always just looked at it like, hey, you know, I knew what I wanted to be, and I knew how I wanted to be revered and respected and all of that.
Mhm.
Um, and still do, right? I still have a journey, a whole bunch of journey ahead of me, but I knew what I wanted to do and I knew how I wanted to be viewed. But I also know that there are circumstances that sometimes may be in place that I can't control. So I can only
Right,
focus on what I can control. And
right,
that's whatever the energy is that I try to give off to people. And I am an optimist, and I do look at things like the glass is always half full. But that's just because I was raised that way, so I can't really take credit for it, if that makes sense.
right.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And I understand the part of the humbleness because that's how I was raised too.
yeah,
Um, and so I'm very humble. Sometimes we can be humble to a fault.
that's fair. I've heard that before.
And and I believe that, all of us are not wrong. How we see you, how we view you. It's just that you gotta be willing to embrace that and
Yeah,
celebrate how we see you.
and I appreciate it.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, because for me, we need black men like you to be seen.
Okay.
We need it
Right.
because you're not what they put out to the world to see.
Right.
So um, we need to see a black man like yourself who's hardworking. Because for my clients, and I have young men from 25 to 37, that around maybe around in your age range, right?
Yep.
And their struggle is they they at this age and they feel like they're not where they're supposed to be at. I have failed.
Right. Right.
And so to hear you go through the trials and tribulations of what you're doing in your career, but also doing something they have not decided to do is you stand on business. So you not only when you was working for V, you doing that and you still working at the dealership.
Yep. Still
So
do
you
now.
and you're doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the grind that you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another reason why I want you on because I think people have to understand if you really want something, you gotta put the work in and you have to make the sacrifice.
Absolutely. No sacrifice, no victory.
No victory.
Yep.
So, whatever I do, I work hard, you know, and so it's not a 9 to 5 type thing. It's like a all day type thing.
Absolutely.
And but to get to where I want to get to, but you still have V. Are you still doing the radio station in Colorado too?
Yes, I'm on the air every day in Denver. I do middays from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, Monday through Friday in Denver. I do the show actually from my house, but it sounds like I'm live. So what I
Okay.
do is just to give you like a routine, like what I do is when I get up in the morning, I'll knock out the Denver show. It takes me about 2 hours to record it. So I knock that out. Then I get dressed and go to work. And I'm at work most of the day because I'm in finance, so it's a lot. It's very involved, right? So I'll go
Mhm.
to work and then I'll come home and then I have to go work out usually at 8:30 at night, with my trainer and all that. And then depending on whatever else I have going on, I just make it work. You know what I mean? On the weather front, it just depends on what's going on. Like if we're dealing with inclement weather, then I may be on call to do stuff like that because again, my background is atmospheric sciences and meteorology. So that's something that I still have there, and I'm practicing and doing it kind of on a consultant type of basis because if I was to go do that full time, I wouldn't be able to do anything else. And I'm just not at a point in life where I just want to do one thing, unless that one thing is astronomical. That's the only way that I want to just do one thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of how my days go. So yeah, and then now I'm only on V really if Tigger's out, then I do the morning show still. If Tigger's gone. So that's kind of where it's at right now.
Okay. But see, that's a lot.
Yeah,
But that's your passion and that's where you at. And I just think, you saying that would tell the audience, especially people who follow me, that those young men that's in your age range, that if you really want to do it, you have to be disciplined enough and to make a sacrifice. And
absolutely.
I say just give yourself 6 months, 6 months to 9 months, and just put your head down, do what you got to do,
Yep,
and see the blessings that come along with it.
absolutely.
So when I see your Instagram, I see your card that you post and stuff like that, that's hard work.
Yeah,
Everybody wants the lifestyle that you wear, the suits that you rock, but you put in the hard work for that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, a lot of sacrifices. You know what I'm saying? And there are some people that understand it, and I've had people in my life that didn't understand it. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
unfortunately, though, it's the only way I really know how to be. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
have aspirations, I have goals, I have things that I want to achieve. I joke about it a lot, but the reality is I'm addicted to achievement. It's an addiction for me, right? When I
Right.
when I do something, I want to do more. That's, I think, one of the reasons why it's hard for me to accept the flowers and the compliments that you're giving me, is because I don't look at myself like I'm at that pinnacle peak or anywhere near it. You know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
difficult for me to sometimes internalize that. However, I'm very thankful for it, because a lot of times, like a lot of my black men and stuff, I don't feel seen. Like a lot of people don't feel seen. I'm no different just because I'm on the radio or television or whatever. I go through
Yeah.
mental health struggles like everybody else, and quite frankly, probably even more so. You know what I mean? Because I do have some self-esteem issues, and I do have some issues with acceptance and outside validation that I feel like I require all the time. Like I do deal with that stuff. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
and it can put you in a mind headspace that sometimes can be dangerous a little bit. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
there are plenty of days I get to doubting myself, or how come I'm not this, or how come I don't have a woman, or how come I'm whatever it is. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
you got to really. I'm really trying to continue to take guidance like you're giving me, and guidance from like people that I look up to, you know what I mean, that can help permeate. But it just takes time, because I'm a little thick-headed when it comes to that. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So, yeah.
So first of all, was thank you for being so transparent
Sure.
and and vulnerable,
Sure.
because you didn't have to say any of that.
Yeah.
But what you have helped me showcase the world is that what I deal with when I coach our black men. Most of the black men is just like you. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They suffer from self-esteem issues.
Absolutely.
They may get, but women don't understand just because the guys can get the women does not mean they suffer from self-esteem issues.
Right.
They can get a woman all day,
Yeah.
but that still doesn't mean they still suffer self-esteem issues.
Oh yeah.
And so, and I just think, for me, if I'm transparent, um, that's why I was put on that assignment, because, a lot of times they'll say, you want to be a coach, you coach the women because the women's going to pay faster than the guys, this and that. But at the end of the day, I feel the assignment is we got to coach the men.
Yeah.
You know, the
We
men
need
are the ones, y'all needed more.
we need it. You
You,
know.
you, you needed more. And I think the more so the self-esteem comes along a lot of times because a lot of the men didn't have a male figure
Mhm.
in their lives that made them sing.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was singing like my dad saw me, and he still at 81, 82 still sees me.
Right.
So he told me how important I was.
Yeah.
So for me, doing this as a coach, I I intentionally tell our black men, I see you.
And I
You know what
appreciate
I'm saying?
we appreciate it.
Because I know it's a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the black men want to know that they're seen. They want to know that they're heard.
Yep.
They want to know that they're loved.
Yep. Yeah.
And and with the society that we're in, it's hard for men to be able to say those things and ask for those things without feeling some type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, for me, somebody that I hold dear to me in my journey, in my everyday life, you part of my life
Yeah.
because I listen to you on the radio or I follow you on Instagram. When you got off the station, you say you're gonna be in Denver, I will log on to listen to you because
Yeah.
I need that energy from you.
Yeah.
And so for me, the least I could do is when I had this conversation with you was to give the energy back to you
And I appreciate it.
because
Yeah.
because you give a lot
Yeah.
when you be on the radio. You give a lot, you put out a lot in your personality, and I feel that sometimes people who give out a lot of times don't get poured back into.
Right.
And so it's my responsibility to pour back into you as
I,
well.
man, I appreciate that wholeheartedly, brother. Like you really opened up my mental space in a positive way. And I'm at the point at this particular moment where I'm kind of questioning my pessimism a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Maybe I do need to start to view myself a little differently. And I know that it's a process, but I also
Hmm.
know that I'm open to experiencing what that feels like. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things where the more stuff that I do, the more, I guess, recognition that I would love to receive, but that I don't
Hmm.
feel like I receive, or whatever the case is. And
Hmm.
so, and people that are entertainers, they'll say whatever they want to say, but I'm going to tell you my truth. And my truth is
Hmm.
that us as entertainers, we do care what people think. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, you hear all day long about people, yeah, I don't care what such and such things. You can think what you want. I'm not that guy. I do care what people think about me. It's
Hmm.
very important to me. And sometimes I may care a little too much, and I understand that too, but I really do care what people think about me. And to me, it's almost like a report card. It's almost like this is how I'm doing based off the validation that I get from other people, right?
Hmm.
And that's a little bit of a mentally unhealthy way to be, but it's reality for me. You
Right.
know, so
And I think a lot of times those who are in the entertainment industry can be a little bit more sensitive compared to other people.
yeah, yeah,
And as a follower of you, I know that's something that you struggle with.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
big time.
because you because you can be sensitive, and then I
Yep,
think that bothers you to a certain extent.
it
But
does.
I would challenge you um, not to feel that way,
Yeah,
because at times I wish I could be a little more sensitive. Because you should be able to be in tune with your feelings
right,
and be more emotionally intelligent.
right,
And not always pushing how we feel to the back.
right.
To be able to express how we feel and move forward from that. So that why I would check. I feel like a lot of stuff that you challenge with is just you just changing your mindset of how you see it.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. I receive that.
And, and then one of the other things I saw you said too was, you know, it's like when it was hard for you to receive some of the stuff I'm saying because you're not at the pinnacle yet of where you want to be. And what I challenge my clients to do is to celebrate all the wins, no matter how little or
Yeah,
how large it is. You celebrate all the wins because you never know when or if you ever get to the pinnacle.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you celebrate all the little wins because that win is deserved to be celebrated,
My
and
grandmother
you
said that. Yeah,
yeah, and you deserve to be celebrated because you created that win.
yeah. Appreciate it, man. I really do.
So, so yeah, so what's next for you?
Man, at this particular juncture, if we're talking about professionally, you know, the climate in radio right now is very strange. It's very fickle. It's changing. It's going through a
Mhm.
metamorphosis. Terrestrial radio, I'm talking about. It's going through
Mhm.
a metamorphosis because now we're in a position where people have so many different avenues to get their content from. You have
Mhm.
social media, you have Spotify, you have Apple Music, you have this, blah, 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 right? It's the
Mhm.
days of going just to a radio station to get all of your content are gone, right?
Mhm.
So the luster of a terrestrial radio is starting to diminish a bit. So the key
Mhm.
now is to stay ahead of the evolution curve. Me and my radio brethren, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. Like, we got to stay ahead of the evolution curve in order to continue to be successful. You hear about radio not programs, but companies that are going through all these cutbacks and bankruptcies and all this other stuff. And that's because people have different means to get their content. So you have to give them a reason now to come and rock with you, whatever that reason is going to be. So
Right.
for me on that field, I think I'm getting to the point, really, man, where I'm starting to look at it and say, I've had a pretty good run. I didn't get to where I thought I would, but if I'm going to remain in this, I got to figure out different ways to reinvent myself so that
Mhm.
people will feel like they need to come to me whenever I'm on or whatever the case is. And I will say that I appreciate all the love and the notoriety that I do get when I'm on V, because it's crazy how, I'll post, I'm going to be on or whatever. And there's certain people that, oh, we can't wait and all that. And it's really cool to hear stuff like that. But I just know the humility in me speaks and says, well, radio's changing. You know what I mean? And so the loyalty that fans at one time had is starting to waver a bit because they got different places to go. So I think what's next for me, man, is just to continue to focus on staying ahead of the evolution curve in whatever that I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
Okay. What would you tell our Black men who are striving to become their best selves, but feels like they don't deserve it, or they have already failed and it's too late? What would you tell them?
I would say, for one, get out of your own head, because I struggle with that. So I know what that feels like. I would say get out of your own head, but I would also say continue to be very optimistic, continue to be coachable, and continue to put more work in than the person next to you. And that has a lot to do with making sacrifices. Like, you might not be able to go to the club when the homeboys is going to a club. You might not be able to take the trip to go to the beach because you might need to work on something. You know what I mean? But be okay with that and understand that people are going to pull you in different directions because of what they want from you, right? But they're not the ones that are going to seed into your success. You and God are responsible for your success. You know what I mean? And there's certain things that you're going to have to give up and sacrifice in order to obtain the level of success that you want to obtain. Some people will understand that and some people will not. And you have to be ready to accept the people that will not. You know what I mean? I think that those are the main factors. Be coachable, be humble, because you can't grow if you're not humble. Because if you're not humble,
Right,
that means you think you know everything, which means you can't grow. You can't learn anything. So be
right.
coachable, be humble, and most importantly, be faithful and be optimistic. Is what I would say.
Okay, and so my last question on that tip is, how has your spirituality kept you uh, humble, but also uh, faithful during this whole evolution?
It gives me a place to tap into and extract some strength when I need it. It's almost like
Mhm.
having a reserve tank. When I feel like I'm empty, I know I can tap into my reserve tank, and that's the faith, and say, you know what, God didn't bring me this far to drop me off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what I've tried to rely on, and say, you know what, if I go through disappointment, yeah, well, God's not gonna bring me through that if He ain't got something better for me, or if He don't have something He wants me to experience. You know what I mean? I think without that faith, I wouldn't be able to have that belief or that thought process.
Okay. Well, brother, I truly appreciate having you on my show. I appreciate your transparency, your vulnerability on the show, and all that you gave. Once again, I'm gonna say it again. You are a light
Thank you.
that that cannot be dimmed. And it's light that we all are needed.
Thank you.
You when there's darkness, all we need to do is type in Jarard J, and you're gonna give us the light to where we need to go. I know greatness is coming. More greatness is coming to you and for you, and I just wish you nothing more than the best, brother.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for having me. And thank you to your audience. I really appreciate it, man. It helped me a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you again. I'll talk to you again soon, brother. I appreciate
Okay.
you.
Okay.
All
One
right.
love.
Peace. Yeah.